The Thanksgiving table was set perfectly. My sister-in-law's good china, the kind she only brought out twice a year, candles lit, the smell of roasting turkey filling every corner of their house. I had driven 40 minutes through traffic to get there. I had brought 2 pies, a bottle of wine, and a casserole dish that was still warm on the passenger seat. I remember thinking as I pulled into their driveway that I was happy, that this was what family felt like. I was wrong about a lot of things that evening. My brother met me at the door, took the casserole without saying thank you, and immediately started talking about the leak in their upstairs bathroom. Not, "Hey, glad you made it." Not, "Thanks for cooking." Just the bathroom, the pipes, the estimate some plumber had given him. I stood there in my coat, casserole dish still faintly warm in my hands, nodding like I always did. That was the version of me that existed for years. Nodding, helping, showing up, writing checks. I need to give you some context, because none of what happened later makes sense without it. I'm 31 years old. I work in software engineering at a mid-sized tech company in Austin. I've been there 6 years. I'm good at my job, and I make good money. More than I ever expected to make at this age, honestly. I bought my condo when I was 28, paid off my car last year, and I have a retirement account that my financial advisor calls impressively disciplined for someone your age. I tell you this not to brag. I tell you this because my family knew all of it, and somewhere along the way, that knowledge became a kind of permission slip. It started small, the way these things always do. My brother is 4 years older than me. He married his wife when I was 24, and I liked her at first. She was funny, a little loud, had opinions about everything. They had their daughter, my niece, the following year. Then they had their son 2 years after that. My brother had been in construction management, but the company he worked for downsized during a slow quarter, and suddenly he was between jobs. Just temporarily, he said. Just untemporarily, he said. Just until something better came along. I lent them $2,000 for their mortgage that month. It felt like the obvious thing to do. They were family. I had it. It would have felt strange not to. Something better never exactly came along. Or it came and then went, or the timing was always slightly off. I'm still not entirely sure how to explain the next several years other than to say I kept lending, they kept needing, and the word loan gradually stopped meaning anything at all. I paid dead car insurance for 2 years running. I covered my niece's travel volleyball fees, her gear, the tournaments in San Antonio and Dallas, and once in Phoenix, which involved flights. I helped with my nephew's tutoring when he was struggling in school. I sent money when the water heater died, when the transmission went on my brother's truck, when my sister-in-law decided to start a small Etsy shop and needed startup materials. I co-signed on their refinance. And 2 years ago, I gave them $40,000 toward the down payment on the house they currently live in. I kept a spreadsheet, not to hoard it over them. I want to be clear about that. I kept it the way I kept track of most things in my life, methodically, because that's how my brain works. I just wanted to know where my money was going. When I finally added it all up last spring, the total was a little over $230,000 across 7 years. My family knew I was generous. What they didn't know, because I never told them, was that I'd been tracking every dollar. I also want to be honest about something uncomfortable. I kept giving because I was afraid of what would happen if I stopped. Not afraid of them exactly. Afraid of the version of myself they would decide I was if I said no. The cold one. The selfish one. The one who has all this money and won't help her own family. I grew up watching my parents sacrifice constantly for other people, and somewhere along the way I absorbed the idea that generosity was how you proved you were good. I didn't realize until much later that the people receiving my generosity had also absorbed that idea and were using it accordingly. My niece is 17. She's smart, genuinely, in a way that can be either charming or cutting depending on her mood. She's always had a lot to say about everything, and for most of her life, I found that quality endearing. She reminds me a little of myself at that age, actually, which makes what happened sting in a specific, particular way that I still haven't entirely processed. She has a TikTok account. A lot of teenagers do. I knew about it, had seen a few of the videos, mostly the kind of low-stakes lifestyle content that 17-year-olds make. Getting ready in the morning, what she ordered at Starbucks, commentary on whatever show she was watching. Harmless stuff. I'd even liked a few of them. The video she posted in early October was different. I found out about it from a coworker, which is somehow the detail that makes the whole thing worse. My coworker, a woman I eat lunch with sometimes, who knew my niece tangentially through some mutual social media overlap, pulled me aside on a Monday morning and said carefully that she'd seen something I might want to know about. She showed me her phone. The video was about 1 minute and 40 seconds long. My niece was doing her makeup in the mirror, talking to the camera in that practice casual way that reads as off the cuff but clearly isn't. She didn't use my name. She didn't have to. She described, with a kind of cheerful specificity, her aunt, 31, never been in a serious relationship, no kids, kind of obsessed with her job. And then, while carefully applying mascara without looking away from her own reflection, said, "I kind of feel bad for her, honestly. Like, what is the point? You can have a great job and a nice apartment and still be, like, completely alone. That's not a life. That's just existing." She used the hashtag #anti-alert. It had, at the time my coworker showed me, around 12,000 views. I stood in the hallway outside our open plan office and watched it twice. Then I put my phone in my pocket and went back to my desk and opened my work laptop and spent the next 2 hours doing my job very quietly, the way you do when something has happened that you haven't yet figured out how to feel about. Here is what I felt. Once I stopped performing composure, I felt like I had been standing in a room for 7 years, handing things through a window, and someone had finally turned on a light and let me see that on the other side of that window. The people I was handing things to had been laughing at me the entire time. I didn't call my brother. I didn't text my sister-in-law. I didn't reach out to my niece. I went home that night, made dinner, sat on my couch in my nice apartment that apparently signified an empty life, and opened my spreadsheet. $231,400, 7 years. I thought about who I had been at 24 writing that first check. How certain I was that this was the right thing to do, how much I had wanted to be the kind of person who showed up for her family. I thought about the $40,000 for their down payment, which I had pulled from my own home savings, which meant delaying buying a larger condo by at least 2 years. I thought about the Phoenix volleyball tournament, which fell on the same weekend as a work retreat I skipped, explaining to my manager that I had a family commitment. Then I closed the spreadsheet, opened a new document, and started writing. It took me about a week to finalize everything. I didn't act in anger. I want that to be clear, because I think acting in anger would have felt satisfying in the moment and sloppy afterward. I took my time. I called my bank and had a long, civil conversation with a representative about my accounts. I contacted the phone carrier and removed the 2 lines I'd been paying for my family plan. I called my insurance broker and updated my policies. I went through every automatic transfer, every standing payment, every recurring charge that had accumulated quietly over 7 years, and I cancelled them one by one. Then I drafted a letter, printed it, put it in an envelope. On a Thursday evening, I drove to my brother's house. My sister-in-law answered the door, which I hadn't planned for. I'd assumed my brother would be home first. She looked surprised to see me. I handed her the envelope and said calmly that I wanted them to read it together. She started to say something. I told her I wasn't there to discuss it tonight, that everything I needed to say was in the letter, and I wished her a good evening. Then I got back in my car. The letter was 4 pages. It wasn't cruel. I don't think it was anyway. It laid out, clearly and without editorial, the amounts I had given them over 7 years, and what those amounts had been used for. It explained that I had made a decision, for reasons that were entirely my own, to restructure my finances and discontinue the support I had been providing. It said that I wished them well, genuinely, and that I hoped we could eventually find a way to have a relationship that wasn't built on a financial arrangement that had never been named or acknowledged as one. The last paragraph was short. It said, "I recently became aware of a video my niece posted that described me, without using my name, as a cautionary tale. I'd like her to know that I saw it, and that it clarified some things for me. I don't hold it against her, but I do want her to understand that every opportunity she has had in the last several years, the volleyball, the tutoring, the things she may not have even known cost money, came from someone she considers a sad story." I didn't include the spreadsheet in the letter, but I kept it. My brother called me within an hour of the letter being delivered. I didn't answer. He called again. I didn't answer. He texted. First a short one that said, "We need to talk," then a longer one that I read once and didn't respond to. My sister-in-law called twice. My niece, who I think had been told about the letter at that point, sent me a message on Instagram that said, "Aunt, my name, I'm so sorry you took it that way." I took a screenshot and moved on. My brother showed up at my condo the following Saturday morning. I had been expecting this, honestly. He is not the kind of person who accepts not being heard. He rang my bell 3 times, then called me while standing outside, which I could hear faintly through my door. I let the call go to voicemail. He left a message that started out reasonable, and by the end had escalated to the kind of voice he used when we were teenagers, and he was trying to win an argument by being louder than everyone else. I listened to the voicemail once, then deleted it. He came back the following weekend with my sister-in-law. I was not home. I had anticipated this, had made plans to have coffee with a friend, which I would have done anyway because I'd been letting friendships atrophy for years, and was trying to correct that. I came home to a note tucked in my door. I read it in the elevator. It asked me to think about what I was doing to the family. It said that my niece was devastated and didn't mean it like that. It said that I was taking something personally that was just a kid being a kid on social media. It said in the second to last paragraph that they had some upcoming expenses, my nephew's orthodontics, a repair they'd been putting off, and they were hoping we could discuss what support might look like going forward. I stood in my apartment hallway for a moment after reading that. Then I folded the note in half and put it in the recycling bin. There's a thing that happens, I've noticed, when you remove yourself from a dynamic that everyone has accepted as permanent. People don't grieve the relationship, they grieve the arrangement. My brother wasn't calling because he missed having his sister around on Sunday evenings. He was calling because a structural element of his family's finances had been removed without warning, and he needed it back. Every message, every note, every voicemail. Once I learned to read them for what they were rather than what I wanted them to be, they all said the same thing: come back, but only the part of you that writes checks. My niece reached out again about 3 weeks later. This time it was a longer message, and it read differently. Less like a teenager who'd been told to apologize, and more like a teenager who had genuinely sat with something uncomfortable. She said she hadn't realized, truly, how much of what she'd taken for granted had come from me. She said the video was thoughtless, and she wished she hadn't posted it. She said she had taken it down. I appreciated that. I told her so. I also told her that I wasn't angry, and that I wasn't punishing her, and that the decisions I had made were mine and were about my life, not about her video. That video had clarified something for me, but the problem wasn't the video. The problem was 7 years of a relationship built on the assumption that my success obligated me to other people's stability. The video just happened to be the moment I finally let myself see it clearly. She asked if we could get lunch sometime. I said I'd like that. I've been in therapy for the past few months, which I probably should have started years ago. My therapist has this way of asking a question and then waiting with an expression that makes it clear she is not going to fill the silence for me, and I found that deeply annoying and also exactly what I needed. One of the things we've talked about is the difference between generosity and self-erasure, and how for a long time I had been doing the second thing while telling myself it was the first. I'm not angry at my brother. I'm not angry at my sister-in-law. I understand, in a way I couldn't have articulated a year ago, how they got there, how a pattern of receiving can gradually feel so normal that the absence of it feels like an attack. I understand how my niece, who grew up watching her volleyball trips and tutoring sessions appear as if by magic, could have had no framework for where any of it came from. I made sure she didn't. I never asked to be thanked, never made a show of my contributions, never put any of it on the table where it could be seen and considered and maybe, over time, appreciated. I participated in my own invisibility because I had confused being invisible with being good. I have not resumed any financial support. I've been redirected those payments into my own savings, and the number going up every month is something I'm still getting used to looking at. I bought myself a trip to Portugal for 2 weeks this past spring. Solo travel, something I'd always put off, because it felt indulgent in a way I couldn't quite justify. I came home with a full camera card, and a notebook full of things I'd written in cafes and a sense of my own life that I can only describe as, this is mine. All of it. My brother and I talk occasionally now. It's different, more careful, a little tentative on both sides, like people who are remembering how to be in the same room without a transaction in the middle. I don't know what it will become. I'm not rushing it. My sister-in-law and I exchanged Christmas cards. I felt like enough for now. My niece and I did get lunch. We went to a taco place she liked, and we talked for almost 2 hours about things that had nothing to do with any of this. Her college plans, a book she'd read that she thought I might like, whether Austin's summers are actually getting worse, or if everyone just complains about heat more than they used to. She paid for her own tacos. I don't think she realized how much that small thing meant to me, until she saw my face and asked if I was okay. I told her I was better than okay. There's a version of this story where I'm bitter about the $230,000. I'm not. Most of it I gave freely, from a place that was real, even if it was also a place that was scared and people-pleasing and quietly desperate for belonging. I can hold both things at once. The giving was real, the cost was real, and the moment I finally let myself stop, that was the most real thing of all. I am 31 years old. I live alone in a condo I love in a city I chose. I have good friends I'm finally making time for, a job I find genuinely interesting, and enough money in my accounts that I can sleep without the low-grade anxiety that used to live somewhere behind my sternum at all times. I am single, and I am not lonely, and I am not a cautionary tale. I am someone who learned, later than I should have, maybe, but not too late, that you cannot buy your way into being valued, and that the moment you stop trying, the people who truly value you will still be there. That's the whole story. That's enough. I think about my niece doing her makeup in that video sometimes, not with anger anymore, just with a kind of quiet recognition. She wasn't being malicious, not really. She was 17 and performing a version of the world she had inherited, one where a woman without a husband and kids was a cautionary tale by default. She hadn't invented that idea. She just absorbed it, the way kids absorb everything, from the adults around her, from the culture, from 1,000 small signals nobody bothers to name out loud. The real question was never why she said it. The real question was why I had spent 7 years handing my life over to people who quietly believed it. There's a kind of clarity that only comes from a reckoning. Not the angry kind. I've had that too, and it mostly just makes noise. I mean the kind where you sit down with a spreadsheet at 10 o'clock on a Monday night, and the number staring back at you is so large and so specific that you can't soften it anymore. $231,000, 7 years! And somewhere in that document, behind every line item, was a version of me that believed generosity without limit was the same thing as being good. It wasn't. That's the thing I had to sit with. Goodness, real goodness, the kind that holds up under pressure, requires honesty. It requires the willingness to say, this is what I can give, and this is where it ends, and I'm telling you both things clearly, so neither of us has to pretend. What I had been doing wasn't generosity. It was a performance of selflessness, funded by actual self-erasure. And I had kept the performance going because somewhere deep down I believed that if I stopped, I would be the bad one. That if I ever said no, everything I had given before would be retroactively cancelled. Proof that I was cold, that I didn't care, that my success had made me someone they couldn't trust. What I've learned, slowly, in therapy, in the months since, is that the courage to stop is its own kind of integrity. It takes something real to look at a pattern you've been in for 7 years and say, I built this and I can choose differently. Not because I'm giving up on my family, not because I've decided they don't matter, but because I matter too, and I had been behaving as if that were a controversial opinion. My niece is going to figure out her own version of this lesson eventually. She's smart enough. And the fact that we had lunch, that she paid for her own food without making a production of it, that she looked me in the eye and said she was sorry like she meant it, that tells me she's already starting to. The people in my life who are worth keeping are the ones who can grow. The ones who can sit with discomfort and come out the other side, changed rather than just defensive. I spent a long time being the reliable one, the one you could count on, the one who showed up with casseroles and co-signed refinances and never asked for anything back. And I'm not ashamed of that person. She was doing the best she knew how. But I'm more interested now in being the honest one, the one who knows her own worth without needing anyone else to confirm it. The one who books a solo trip to Portugal and comes home different. That's the life I'm building now. It doesn't look like anyone else's idea of success, and I've made my peace with that.